Hello everybody, welcome back to Blue vs. Orange TCG with Christian Young here, showcasing a deck profile on the winning Fortress Maximus list that I took to last Saturday's Lunar B one-day event that the Alpha Trion Protocols were hosting. Event was really cool. It was Titan 1 format, so this is a Titan 1 legal deck. Even though Fort Max is 2 Titan Masters, I believe Cerebros is not considered a Titan Master or something along those lines. Something weird like that to where this guy is actually allowed. But besides that, the event was really cool. I played against a lot of meta decks, like a lot of decks that I would say are really ripping up the meta game right now, especially in the Titan 1 format. I got the chance to play against one in every single round, and I was still able to take it down with this Fortress Maximus list here. Now, if you guys know anything about me, you know that I love Fortress Maximus. I took it in the Wave 5 meta game, and I was able to win 1 or 2 tournaments with that, with a list with Fort Max as well. I've won the S-Dot, or no, it wasn't S-Dots, it was Eye in the Matrix team event with Fort Max, and I decided it's been too long, I had to bring it back out, and I ended up doing really well again. So I'm here to showcase the deck profile. This is a really exciting deck. I think there's some changes to it that I made from my previous list before that add to the ATP metagame as a whole, or adjust to the ATP metagame. But there's also the things that I realized that I would definitely take out that I thought were mainstays when I first played this list, that I'm going to talk about later on. But just going over the characters real quick. This is Fortress Maximus right here in all of his giant glory. He's a Metroplex-sized character. He's a Titan. And I think he's very fun. I think he's definitely the funnest Titan that they've ever come out with. He's very simple. He's got a very singular strategy. So going over him real quick, he's a Titan ranged in alt mode. 8-15-2, that's the same in both modes that he's in. 8-15-2 in this one as well. But his effects are all based off colors. So when in alt mode, when this defends and I flip at least a white and a blue on my defense, I deal 1 damage back to the attacker. That's really important because that 1 damage happens before damage calculation. So if I'm happen to be defending and I flip a white blue against an attacker that has 1 health left, he gets dealt the 1 and then he dies, and then immediately combat ends. I don't actually take any attack damage, which is really huge for being able to kind of like dodge certain attacks here. And of course he begins the game with Cerebros, so he gets the bold 1 and tough 1 as his main head that he starts with. And then in body mode here, Fort Max gets he still gets the bold 1 tough 1 from the head. Still 8-15-2, but this time when he attacks and you flip an orange-black on attack, you get to deal 2 damage to each enemy, and then you flip them back to alt mode. So this is the strategy of Fort Max, right? You aren't going to be staying in this mode for very long, maybe 2 turns tops. Often it's hard, 1, 2, sometimes 3 turns. I'll say sometimes 3 turns. I did get to a game where I ended up being able to attack 3 times in this mode, which was huge. But for the most part, you won't. You'll be able to, what your main strategy is to flip to body mode and swing into the most dangerous targets on your opponent's team. For blue decks, that's often the big centerpiece character. For the aggro decks, maybe it's whatever character you think can hit the hardest or more effectively die quickest, so you can get them off attackers early on. But this is the whole strategy. You flip, you swing, you hope you hit your trigger. If you don't, you're very sad because you don't get to flip back to alt mode. But if you do hit the trigger, you photon bomb their board, and you flip back to hopefully deal them more damage on their attacks and hopefully survive. This is the whole point of the deck. It's very simple. You're trying to take out the most dangerous target early on, and when you do, you feel really good. But if you don't and you die kind of early, you take this guy out and you get your second character, Cerebros, right here. So Cerebros is basically, he's ahead of Fort Max. You always have to have Cerebros as your first head for Fort Max. It's on his all mode text. He keeps the bold 1 tough 1 in this mode. Obviously he can't flip. He's a 6-8-1, and when you flip a white, orange, black, and blue colors when attacking or defending, and before damage calculation, this is important, before damage calculation, you get to play an upgrade from your scrap pile onto him. This effect is honestly absolutely incredible. There are times when you're defending against like an attack of like 12 that's gonna like one-shot you, but you hit this effect and you're able to put force fields on him real quick, and then he only takes 4. Or when you're attacking and you are swinging with like a sturdy javelin, you swing the javelin, hit your trigger on attacking, you pull a weapon, now he gets the plus from the attack. Armed hovercraft, crushing size, scrapper gauntlets, enhanced power cell. This guy can grab everything. This guy is a toolbox character as a whole. We built the deck honestly mostly around this guy's ability, because when you finally have Fort Max die out, you're gonna be grinding games out with Cerebros here. This is the whole point of this deck, is where you're gonna try to eliminate the most powerful target quickly on your opponent's board, and you're gonna try to use Cerebros to grind out the rest of the game. But if you don't, you do have a secondary head. We'll get into that secondary head here, which we have, of course, the best head, Grax. So Grax, what Grax does is he's able to give a lot more survivability to Cerebros, give him up to 13 total health, which is you know, it's fine. It's definitely a lot better than 8 or 10 or 11 or whatever he would get from the other health heads. I think in all my testing, this is pretty much the only like head that I would ever recommend playing onto Cerebros. Because you just need the survivability, right? Like, the fact that you get over the 12 base damage threshold means that you can use Force Field 3 times over the course of like 0 to end of health, right? If you don't take any direct damage, you can use Force Field up to 3 times during the game, and that's like going to be really huge. He also, you know, he's got 4 attack, he's got 5 health. He can live off of a Force Field trigger himself if you really need to. There are times when this guy can just close out a game real quick for you. Other times you just need to scoop if you go to this guy, depending on how the game's going. But definitely like the best head I would say for this team. Total Cerebros and Fort Max is a, let's see, there we go. These guys are 21 stars right here. Grax makes it 24, and then I do have 1-star card, and we'll go into the deck profile now. I'm just showcasing the characters. I gotta move this whole flipping thing. Alright, so going over the main deck first. So real quick, I do want to preface that this is a 46 card main deck, and the reason this is 46 cards is because of Cerebros' ability. Again, we built this whole deck around Cerebros and triggering off his ability, because the ability is just that strong that it can just win you games alone. We don't want to shuffle. You know, whenever we shuffle our scrap pile, that means we have to restart our whole toolbox. Our toolbox is gone, and we have to hope for our flips and restart, you know, generating this big toolbox again as soon as you flip, or as soon as you shuffle your deck again. And if you shuffle mid attack or defense, even if you hit your trigger, you got nothing in your scrap now. So the whole point of having a 46 card main deck is to ensure that you're going to stave off at least 1 or 2 attacks, or get like an extra trigger off of Cerebros, but still maintaining a level of consistency, because you know, there are times when like I'd sideboard more cards against like a wider team if I'm going to end up flipping more on defense. But at the same time, like, you don't want to blast like 60 cards, right? You don't want to just have like an infinite number of cards, because then you're not going to be able to like have the things in your scrap that you want more consistently. So it's a weird balance between like longevity and consistency with this main deck. I've found 46 cards to feel really good. Other matchups, sometimes you want to side into 48, sometimes 49. You know, there's a you can't side out of cards, sadly, by the sideboarding rules, but that's totally okay. We pretty much, but I've found that 46 cards has felt honestly the best every time I felt Fort Max, and it hasn't let me down quite yet. But anyway, going on to the actual battle cards in the main deck, we're going to go for the actions first. Let's go over the combat pumps that we ran. Being a multi-pip deck, we are as multi-pip as we can get. We are running 3 Master Metallicado, 3 Fight for Position, and then 3 Steady Shot. So just quickly going over each of these cards. They're pretty self-explanatory, because both every side of Fort Max requires flipping a certain number of colors on attack or defense to affect triggers. We run very few like single pipped color cards. So Fight for Position, obviously if we play this, we're going to be able to proc Fort Max's body mode or Cerebros' body mode effect a lot easier. And it's an orange-black, so immediately if we flip just one of these on attacking with Fort Max, we immediately get his proc, which is what we're aiming for. So we do run a lot of orange-black pips. Steady Shot, we're going to go to Steady Shot next. It's a blue-black, so we don't really have too many triggers that trigger off a blue-black, obviously, other than Cerebros. But the fact that, you know, just being able to play this and get +2 is going to be really good to just clear out targets really quickly. It's better than Leap into Battle because it doesn't have it has the 2 pips on it. It's better than bigger they are. There's no reason not to be playing 3 of these, in my opinion, because you do want to clear out games as quickly as possible, and these combat pumps are going to allow it, which is why we run 9 of them. And then, of course, Master Metallicado. This is just like a really easy way for it to trigger a lot of our procs. You know, flipping this, even though we don't get the orange because we're not specialist, still counts for Fort Max's attack mode trigger, which is great. And then we are completely mixed, so being able to, this is like our best pump spell or pump action that we have in the game. In this deck, I should say, probably in the game too, honestly. It has such a high ceiling. Being able to play this and then get +5 when swinging with like Fort Max's Cerebros is honestly ridiculous. I've been able to get to like almost 20 base attack with this and like a weapon over the course of my games I've had in the tournament and in the during like other play testing. It's just fantastic, and I think this upgrade, this pump suite feels really good, and I have no plans on changing it again in the future. We're going to go over the burn cards that I have in the deck now. We run a couple burn actions, so we're mainly running 3 Precision Fire and then 2 Scouting Mission. The Scouting Mission, these cards are really weird, right? So the Precision Fire, it's not like that great of a card. Obviously, like things like Mag Ray is better, but because we're Autobots, we don't really want to play Mag Ray, even though Mag Ray might actually be kind of like a really cool sideboard card against like other Autobot teams. Something to just keep in mind in the future if you play Fort Max. To where, yeah, actually that'd be kind of crazy. You can play Mag Ray, you deal yourself 2, but if you have an all Autobot opposing team, you deal their board 2, and then you attack Fort Max and you deal another 2 to them. Okay, that's pretty good. I went mainboarded though. Still, I'd probably put it in the sideboard. But anyway, back to Precision Fire. Precision Fire is fine. You know, your opponent doesn't flip a lot of times because they only have 1 turn to do a lot of flipping, so you can still play this and potentially hit like 2-3 bots at a time. And again, it's just an orange-black, to where if we flip this, it's going to add to our attack and add to our triggers, which is great. Scouting Mission, we never draw cards. Like honestly, like because of like the nature of the deck and wanting to see most of our cards like either in our scrap or on our flips. Like, yeah, we still want to play cards from our hands, but the fact that this card can potentially screw up, like make you shuffle really early, it's actually a really bad card to draw with. But it has 2 pips. The 2 pips is really important. And honestly, I have won games just from like drawing a Scouting Mission and then just pinging opponents for 1 to kill a character. This is often what's more used for, is just to kill off a character. I'm sure there are times when you maybe want to draw cards if it's really the only thing you've got. But I mean, I've used this to draw like maybe once or twice. Like my whole time playing Fort Max and running this card, and it always felt really bad. But the Scouting Missions always felt so important to run, like there was no point in me ever to take this out. I'm sure there are some other cards that you could potentially run if you don't want to run these, but I personally really like them. As even just like those extra burn options like I was talking about. Alright, now on to the secret actions that we are running in the deck. We are running 6. And this will be interesting to talk about. So ATP-3 gave one of the best secret actions probably ever printed, which is Despite Any Difficulty. This card's ridiculous. It's great for mixed whip decks, and obviously we are a mixed whip deck, so being able to set this either with Fort Max or Cerebros and guarantee surviving an extra attack is like huge, because we're going to get a lot of defense off of this. Even just like +2 is like okay, but getting +3 is so common off of this. And then we did play 2 Hold the Line, and then an Infiltrate as our 6th secret action. So the Infiltrate felt fine. There's a lot of orange actions that I wanted to hit in this metagame. So like 2-pronged attack, obviously Belligerence blows us out, Reckless Charge against any aggro decks. I mean, there are orange actions here that I don't want to deal with. So in the threat of Belligerence was so real that I wanted to at least try running one of these. I never really played it, never really had a huge time to be able to play this effectively. I think this is a total flex spot. It was fine. I could totally see like taking this out if you want to put in like another secret action, like a Sab Arms or something, or like even like an End Hostilities if you wanted to, just to kind of widen out your more useful secret actions if you so desired. But I thought it was fine. Hold the Line is like a really good card. I played 2 of these when I originally played Fort Max in the Wave 5 metagame, and they felt so key and important that I thought these were going to be as important going into this. I think if it was full constructed, I think yes, you still need to play 2 Hold the Line. But in Titan 1, where there's fewer Titan Master characters, there's fewer heads popping around, the characters are naturally bigger, this felt really bad. I'm not gonna lie, it felt like really, really bad. I think if you're gonna play this deck for Titan 1 format, I would take one of these out. I don't think you need 2 of them. Like this could be like a second infiltrate, or you could change these two to sab arms if you so desired, or to in hostilities. But you don't need two of them. The biggest factor why we ran two is that they're whites. Like our white count is incredibly important in this list, and I'm gonna go over the like actual color counts of the list throughout. Probably at the end of this deck profile if you want to hear more about those and like exactly what kind of colors we ran. But I'm gonna tell you right now, the whites are important. We ran 14 white soul, and that's why I kind of stuck with running the two hold the line. But you could totally take this out either for another secret action, or like a Fog of War or a system reboot, something. I would probably swap this up for a white card more than like a sap arms. The more I think about it and talk about it out loud. But those were the secret actions that I ended up running. Again, the Spite was incredibly good. Infiltrate was okay. I can see still running it just to kind of see how it goes. And then the hold the lines, didn't need two of them. We're coming on to the rest of the actions. These are just like the one-ofs here, or just kind of like standalone disruption cards. Espionage, Smelt, and then our star card Fuel Cache. Leaving the Fuel Cache aside first, we're gonna go over these three next. So the double Espionage is super important, because again, these are whites. Because they're greens, it allows you to be able to like drop not so useful cards like the hold the lines, the scouting missions, this as we get over to it. You know, with a card that is going to be able to like, you can just like pick it up, play it, and it disrupts your opponent enough to be like, oh, that's super annoying. It adds value to your action turns over the course of the game that you might not always like get, because you're not drawing cards with this deck. This is not a draw cards deck whatsoever. So these are incredibly important. I would never go down to go down an Espionage. I think the 2 is so important here. Always keep 2. The Smelt is something new I added. I actually got inspiration from Ziggy's Fort Max list that he, I believe, top 8'd the season 2 ATP Invitational with, which I saw, and I really like this. This is super important for me in the finals. I was able to use this on my second turn. To get rid of a Bullseye Aegis that my opponent played, so I could be able to again attack into his big guy, which was an Overlord. It's got 2 pips, even though the second pip doesn't help trigger any of other like actual triggers. Greens are super important. This is great for Dad, Metallicado. It adds variety to our deck. This is just like a really good card. Again, I can't see myself actually ever taking this out because that's how good it was. And then our last action here is Fuel Cache. I played it once in the tournament, and I missed. Yeah, that's all I gotta say about the card. We play for the pips. Like, it's like, that's the only reason we play it. It's a white, orange, blue. It's like one of the best, the best pip suite that we could ever ask for. That's the only reason why we play it. And honestly, like, it could be like a more useful like star card, like a Hands-Free Artillery or a Leap of Faith. But I mean, this is a color deck. Like, every effect that we have on our character revolves around colors, and there's no reason not to like play this, in my opinion. It just felt really good. I've seen people play like Recon System. I tried Recon System. I didn't like it. It just felt like incredibly slow and awkward. I always felt like my utility spot was like way too important to use for Recon System. I always wanted to get rid of it if I had the opportunity to, so I just swapped it out for this, and this was just infinitely better. Alright, so that was the actions there. Alright, so now going over the upgrades. Our burn cards. We got 2 Straight Javelin and 2 Armed Hovercraft. These are very, very important cards. I actually didn't get a chance to play this, I don't think, at all over the course of the tournament. Which is funny, because this card's like really, really important, in my opinion. Not only because they're whites. Again, the whites are just like kind of the most powerful pip in this deck, and we always want to take good attention to notice that. But just like, being able to put this on Fort Max means one character is going to be taking 4 damage out of combat from from this and Fort Max's trigger. You can pick this up with Cerebros on your following turn on defense if you need to. This is just so versatile in the deck. Like, this is such a versatile card because of Cerebros and Fort Max's abilities. And again, it's funny, I never ended up playing this, which you would think would, devalue the card all. It really doesn't. It just like, that just means the circumstances that I needed didn't come up with this card, or I missed them. And then the second, very valuable card in this list is Armed Hovercraft. Why is this card so powerful? Well, let me tell you. So, first of all, being able to play this on Fort Max, again, means your opponent's board is taking 3 damage in one turn. That's huge. But more importantly, we can recur this and recycle this with Cerebros. And when an opponent attacks us, and we trigger Cerebros' effect on defense to be able to recur and upgrade, that means we can just play it on Cerebros, and if they have one health left, they take the damage and they die, and we don't take any damage in that combat. This can kill. This card has killed more things out of combat in this deck than I think I've ever had when playing Armed Hovercraft in any other deck in the Transformers TCG, solely for the fact that we can recur this. This card is insanely powerful. I'm always tempted to want to run 3 of these in the deck. I honestly think you totally couldn't get away with it. I wanted the little bit more variety. I didn't like the single blue is like the biggest problem with it in my opinion. Because we do want to try to run as many multi-pip cards as we can in the list. But I think if you want to take out like the Infiltrate or a Scouting Mission for a third one of these, I don't think you're in the wrong at all. I think that makes a total, like, complete sense. Okay, now to go over the rest of the weapons in the deck, we're just going to go through the rest of them. We got 2 P-Box right here. Probably my favorite card ever printed for personal reasons. 2 Howling Howitzer, and then 1 Backup Beam, 1 Grenade Launcher, and 1 Lock-on Laser as our 1-0s. So this is the rest of the weapons that we are running in this list. So to again, just kind of go over why we ran what we ran. Go over P-Box first. So P-Box again was a card that I ran in the Wave 5 metagame to combat like a lot of the orange-black decks. You could pick this up with Cerebros or Max. You could play it, and excuse me. And I mean, it is rare to miss this in the Wave 5 metagame because everything was black. Like everything had a black pip to it, so you just call black and you hit it like 75, 80, 85% of the time. It was that consistent. But now there's a lot more mixed pip decks. There's a lot more, people splashing in like blue pips and orange decks, orange pips and blue decks, and like blanks. And there's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to get this on target. I think it's still a great card to run in the deck because it just feels so free to run. It's a great white pip weapon. But if you didn't feel the need, I could totally see just taking one out and just playing one of them, and then playing in like another white pip, like another sturdy javelin, something like that. Instead, but I still enjoy playing 2, but I think I would definitely test playing only 1 as well. Maybe 3 sturdy javelins does sound pretty good. Next 12 weapon we got is Howling Howitzer. So this used to be Combat Dagger in the deck because again, the orange black pips cards are very important so that we can trigger Fort Max's body mode ability. It does have the range tribal tag or conditional hybrid pip on for this, but it's Fort Max and Cerebros are range, so that's totally okay. And I think this is just better than Combat Dagger. It's just miles better. You can freely play this on Cerebros or Fort Max to get him +2 attack. You don't get the bold one like you did with Combat Dagger, which some people might value a bit more to hit the triggers more consistently. But I never had a problem with hitting triggers consistently throughout the tournament, even without the extra 2 bold 1 weapons. This was just so much better, and I really like having these in the deck. And then these 1-0s. 1 Backup Beam. I've seen a lot of people play Fort Max and play like multiples of Backup Beam, and I gotta say, Backup Beam is just like not that great of a card. In the list, you pick it up if you don't have any weapons, because that means on your attack you play this, and you're gonna have a higher likelihood of hitting Cerebros' trigger, which means you can get a better weapon. That's really all it comes down to, is you use this to get a better weapon, or you use to get like a utility. You don't need a lot of these. Like I still think 1 is pretty good just to have like that nice like comfort or countermeasure when you're really needing to hit your trigger on its offense. But I rarely ever needed it. Lock-on Lasers is a good white-green weapon. It's really great against Menasor, which I expected in the tournament, and I did play against Menasor, and this card put in so much work against Menasor, let me tell you. This is a mainstay, I think, in the deck. At least in the sideboard. If anything changes in like metagame-wise and Menasor isn't that prevalent, I can totally see like taking this out and putting it only in the sideboard for, I don't know, maybe a sturdy javelin, something like that. Again, we want to maintain white, so like if you take out a white, you kind of need to replace it with a white pip, in my opinion. And last card is just 1 Grenade Launcher. This card's fantastic because you can just, you just hit harder. Hitting hard is good. There's a really sweet combo that I really have to do with Paralyzo Box, where if you play Paralyzo Box on like Cerebros, you swing and you hit the P-Box trigger, the P-Box gives Cerebros +4, not the weapon. So that if you hit Cerebros' attack trigger on attack, You can replace this P-Box with a Grenade Launcher and Scrap, and now you have +8. 4 from the P-Box on Cerebros, and now the 4 from Grenade Launcher. It is a really, really deadly combo. I have swung, I think, a max of like 23 from the P-Box, hitting the trigger for this, and then a Master Metallicado, all 5 colors for like +13 total attack from upgrades and actions. It's really strong. I wouldn't play more than one. I don't think it's needed, but it felt really good to just have this as a one-of. Going off to the armors, we play 6 armors in the list. We play 3 Force Field. Again, this is like one of the most important cards in like the whole list, because it allows Cerebros to last longer. It's a white, which of course we love the white pips in the list. Being able to play this, get this on a defense trigger for Cerebros to where your opponents can't interact with it is huge. It really like fixes one of the problems with this card. That makes it see so much less plays because Bashing Shield and like other upgrade removal exists. It's just amazing. You gotta play 3 of them when you play 4 max. And then I have a couple one-of armors here. 1 Sparring Gear, 1 Bashing Shield, and then 1 Scrapper Gauntlets for the rest of the armors. So again, just to reiterate, Sparring Gear, it's the exact same thing that Backup Beam kind of struggles with, where like people will want to play a lot of Sparring Gear so that you up your bold and tough to be able to trigger a lot, and you just don't need that many of them. Yes, one is good. I think Sparring Gear is actually a lot better than Backup Beam, because then you're going to be able to like more consistently hit Armed Hovercraft on defense triggers. You can even just like, you know, if you see this and you don't have a lot in hand, you can just pick this up, put it on Cerebros, and if you hit your trigger on defense, you can just put a Force Field over it. It just makes your Force Fields easier to grab as well. There's just like, you know, it's a good card, but it's not good enough to run more than one of. The Bashing Shield, you know, similar reasons. We can pick this up. We can take out Hollow Matters, Trithelium Shields, which is good against Cerebros with the Grax head on. You know, there's value playing this. I often before building this list had this in Sideboard, but I would always side it in, so I just now bane boarded it. I'm glad I did. And then another new addition to the deck that I got from Ziggy's 4 max list is Scrapper Gauntlets. Scrapper Gauntlets I originally wasn't running before, but this card is great if you don't have a Force Field in your Scrap, and your opponent's attacking with like a Grenade Launcher or like an Energon Axe, and you hit your trigger, you can put this on Cerebros, gets an extra defense, and blows up that super mean weapon. And worst case scenario is if you don't have a if they don't have a weapon, you can just draw a card. Again, really solid. You know, a single orange pip, which kind of always maybe turn off from playing it, but you know, so far I haven't had too much of a problem with it. And that is the armors. And now going on to just the rest of the utilities. We're on 5. We got 2 Matrix of Leaderships, an Enhanced Power Cell, a Crushing Size, and an Escape Capsule. So real quick, just the Matrix of Leadership. These are in just like for fuel cash, just for the pips. It's not the worst thing to, like, if you don't have anything else better to do, better to play, just to play this on Cerebros and utility. It's still a +1. It's not terrible. If it's the only thing you got to do, it's better than nothing. But again, it's in here for the pips, and it's fantastic for the pips. These other 3 utilities are like game changing though. Like, these are huge. So first off, Escape Capsule. I really like Escape Capsule, especially early game with like Fort Max, because some of the problems of like playing like a Howling Howitzer or like a P-Box or, you know, any of these weapons that stick onto Fort Max is that he dies really quickly, so you don't get a lot of longevity. But being able to play Escape Capsule and then a weapon on Fort Max allows you to carry over to Cerebros. And there are totally times when like you may want to carry over a weapon that's on a about to die Cerebros to your Grax, to where like if you have like a P-Box or maybe you put on a Sturdy Javelin or an Armed Hovercraft, you can put the Escape Capsule on Cerebros, and now all those things, including the Escape Capsule, goes down to Grax and to potentially finish off the game. It's super strong. It's another orange-black for the deck. I wouldn't play more than 1, but I think because you can see it with Cerebros trigger really well. But the one you played, this is a very strong like power push in the game, sometimes in the deck. Crushing Size utilities are super strong on this list. Aura Dominance, Energy Pack, or in the metagame, Aura Dominance, Energy Pack, Enhanced Power Cell, Pocket Processor, opposing Escape Capsules. There's tons of things that this card can hit, and being able to play it straight from the scrap is huge to be able to potentially like kill a character that is living off of their plus health upgrade, getting rid of Pocket Processors. Again, it draws you a card if you don't need it, and most importantly, it's a white pip. You know what? You can't go wrong with it. And then our last card here is Enhanced Power Cell. One of the few, I think if only, single black pip cards we actually run on the list. You know, Cerebros only having 13 health is, you know, it's pretty low, especially as a 1 tall character. Being able to play this though makes him 16, and that's all of a sudden like just the +3 alone just makes him so much beefier and more of a threat to your opponent. This is an extra force field trigger. Actually no, it's not. It's not an extra force field trigger. Never mind. But it's still very good. Just for survivability alone. So playing one of these is great. You're 10 stars with Cerebros and Grax, so you can't play Energy Pack, but it's totally fine. Because, you know, being able to play the Energy Pack means you still have less total health in the end anyway. So those are the utilities. They're very, very strong. Very, very strong on the list. Alright, we're going to move Cerebros out of here as we get into the sideboard. So my sideboard, I heavily tacked in for Menasor because I think out of like the main top decks of the format right now, which is Menasor, Overlord, and Galaxy Prime, the 3 main ones that we've seen play a lot in tournaments. Menasor is the hardest matchup by far. Formax actually has a great matchup against Galaxy and Overlord, but the Menasor matchup is what I was most scared about. So starting off with our sideboard, we tried to run 3 Fog of War. So 3 Fog of Wars. Formax is a deck that, you know, it wants to have a ton of whites in it, and it doesn't rely on having like a big hand or having to like play cards from your hand in general. So being able to play the Fog of War so easily is actually like a big strength of the deck. In fact, I could even see like playing maining these if you're in certain like metagames. We did play against Menasor, and we didn't see this at all. You know, I sideboarded all 3, and I never got a chance to see it, which that was kind of a shame. We still were able to take it down thanks to a little bit of some lucky swings on my end of being able to like KO like Drag Strip out of combat and all that. But I think this card is still really good against Menasor. I wish I had more of a chance to play it. But you know what? That's okay. I think it's still great to have in the sideboard regardless. Next up, for actions, we're running 2 Belligerents. We aren't mainboarding this card because we don't really need it for the control matchups, in my opinion. Like, the deck just does so well against control anyway, we don't really need it. But just in case, I still like to put these in the sideboard in case there is like a deck, especially Menasor, where these are going to be really useful for. They're best used really, really early game with Fort Max so that you can like guarantee his orange-black trigger. They're really bad with Cerebros, honestly, because you don't get to get his proc on attack. But you know, at the same time, sometimes you just don't need that proc on attack, right? The proc on defense is definitely much more useful than the proc on attack, so where like you can still play a Belligerence versus like you can't really play on hostilities very well. And then the upgrades, we do have 1 knock-on lasers. Again, just for the Menasor matchup, I was able to sign in the second one of these. It was really good. In case I needed more health for like aggro matchups, I do have increased durability here in the side that I would put in along with the enhanced power cell to get him up to a base 20 total health, which, you know, I've done in games and it's worked really well. A marksmanship as like a little bit of extra direct damage for any decks that want to be in bot mode a lot. I didn't end up signing this in, but it's still like a pretty good card. I've set it in before in the past, and I don't think excuse me, I don't think I have any plans of changing it here in the future. Hollow Matter Projector, you know, kind of speaks for itself. We don't really have a lot of like direct damage going on in the metagame, but in case we do, we definitely want this, especially if our Fort Max or Cerebros is at 1 health, because we don't want them to be able to like kill us out of combat and then attack our next guy, because we need that longevity. So we keep the card for that. And the last card is an Erratic Energy Grenade. This is actually a really, really clutch card in the sideboard, in my opinion, for wide aggro matchups. Cerebros and Fort Max don't do great against like the wide aggro, in my opinion, because it's like the sheer number of attacks is like so great. This card really comes in handy with that though. Being able to like hit armed hovercrafts and hit Fort Max's bot mode trigger, and just being able to see this early is like important, honestly, against those like 4 or 5 wide aggro decks, and it can steal games so effectively. I would honestly consider taking out maybe like a Belligerence for a second copy of this, maybe even 3, like get up to 3, maybe mainboard one of these. That's how much I love this card in Fort Max. I didn't sight it in at all in the tournament, but I didn't see any 4 wide aggro. I saw a bunch of control, so which this card isn't as great against. But you know, there's been games where I had this in my opening hand, played it directly onto Fort Max, you know, and he dealt like 6, 8 damage out of combat from his own abilities and this coming up. So it's to the whole board, So it's huge in that regard. Anyway, that is the sideboard, and more importantly, that is the deck profile, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it. I absolutely love Fortress Maximus. It's a deck that has always been kind of like near and dear to my heart for a long time. It's a deck that, in the beginning when it came out, people didn't think was very good, but I think this deck is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's especially good right now in the current ATP metagame climate, where control is very prevalent right now. Especially like 3-eye control, being able to just be the bigger, taller deck, especially like game 1, is very, very strong against that type of strategy. So this coming June, if you're looking for like a good deck to combat a lot of like the wave, the ATP-3 control metagame, this is a great deck for that. Anyway, guys, I hope you guys really enjoyed this deck profile. Let me know what your guys' thoughts on the deck in the comment section below. And let me know what other videos you'd like to see from me in the future, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.